So now, once those things are formed, you can just glue them on directly to either side. Just make sure they go over the little white area where they're supposed to fit. I think that's how we'll put the machine gun in later. But those just go on, one on either side. And all these little pieces of the detail are slightly raised, and they make things look a little more interesting, give it a little more texture and depth. So that's, it's always a good reason to do that. So put the other side on. Just make sure you got them going right side up. I didn't at one point, so that's easy to do. Put them both on, make sure they're even, and there it is. It's super easy. Next thing we're going to put on are these little lace pieces. There's one on each side, and they go right there underneath where the cabane struts are going to go. And my assumption is that's where they would have unlaced the airplane to actually get to some of the workings inside when it needed needed a little bit of help. There were no rivets and panel line, that kind of thing generally, but they were able to get into them from just unlacing pieces and probably pulling down the fabric or pulling off the metal cowling, whatever. That's in. Again, it gives a little depth. Each of these pieces, by the way, have been, colored on the edges with a marker and all that. And there's the cockpit combing. Same story. This is a little tricky to put on because it's a very thin piece, so when I cut it, I didn't get it very even. But it actually looks really good once it's done. It's good enough. But you just put this on very carefully and just sort of fish it around and push it down all the way around, kind of get it started on one piece, one area by the headrest, and then just kind of put it all the way around. See here, I'm fixing it because there's places inside that it didn't quite cover, and it looks white or whatever. But I hit it with a little marker, and that's very sufficient. Now the little windscreen goes next. It has to be cut, or not cut, folded in the middle. So I do a little bit of the rear of the X-Acto blade as usual, and then glue it and fold it over. You could put a piece of clear plastic and sandwich it in there, but I do it a different way, and on this one it seemed to work fine, and I'll show that in a couple seconds. Fixing it up, little places that need a little silver. There are parts that need a little bit extra brown. Didn't quite look good. Now, I wanted to bend it so it's a little curved so it would fit the cockpit, the top of the cockpit a little bit better. And I just put it on there with a little glue. And it's at a nice rakish angle. However, it might supposed to be just go straight and flat up between the cabanes. I'm not sure. But this is this little tester's product that I don't even know if you can find this stuff anymore. I bought it when they used to have hobby stores. But it makes windows, and so you kind of put it in. It's almost like Elmer's glue. You can see you kind of put it in, and you basically make a thin film on the inside, and it kind of holds itself together like that. And you just let it dry, and it dries clear. Here I'm sticking on the bulkhead on the front, which is where the motor is going to mount. That fits on there. I used super glue because it glued quick and got tacky fast. Just got to make sure it's straight and level and even. And once it is, you're good. Now there's a little edge around there, which is nice, edge around the top, which is going to be excellent because that's where my cowling will go around. And there, my motor spins like a madman. Everything fits, and it's looking quite good. It's just a nice thing to look at the whole machine together. Last thing is the bottom. There's a front piece and a back piece, and they just fit on the bottom. That front piece is kind of interesting because it's got a very, look at the shape of it. I had to shape that on my little mouse pad with some handles because it's got a curve. It fits underneath where the bulkhead is, but it's also got a curve that goes the other way. You can see that fits by my thumb there. That fits around the edges, but that's just done carefully with a little bit of work, and it worked just fine. I found out where this fits and made sure that I tested it many times. I thinned the edges of it again so that when you look at it from the side, there's not a step, because this paper, even though it's just paper, it's actually kind of thick, and so it will look kind of funny even if the edge is covered. So I had to sand the edges down and cut a little bit of the very rear portion of it had to be a little bit thinner it was a little bit too wide for the fuselage, probably because I did something wrong. But I got it right, and I could even trim more off if I want with a sharp razor blade when it's done. But I know this is where it goes. It's critical to get it right, of course, because the landing gear gets installed and it goes into some holes that are going to be registered. You can see back on my thumb right there where the tail skin is going to go too. But you just basically push down and are very careful. And the tab that's on there is going to be help hold on that front piece that goes under the cowling there. So put a little glue along the tab and then grab that little piece and just match it up. And in my case, that's the only place that it matched up actually quite well, but it has a little bit of a line at that little seam. So I'm going to go back with some paint and just kind of touch that up. But I use my fat fingers to sort of squish it and form it in. And this just takes a little time. You just keep going over the joint and the glue starts to stay, and you smooth it over with your fingers, and it stays quite well. And you can see I'm just going over these many, many times. Make sure things don't move, and I'll be dang, there she is. Whole bottom's done. A lot of the top is finished. Really what I need to do is put the machine gun on and the front cowling, which is what we'll work on next, is the cowling. But I mean, there it is. Amazing how nice it looks. It looks, when you just take a quick glance at it, it looks just like a real neat plastic model. Again, the renderings are lovely on here. Really enjoy them all so far. So having a real good time. But you can see that with just a little care, this can look very good. So the hardest part of the whole model is the fuselage. Now that that's done, I'm pretty confident everything else is going to work. The next biggest headache will be the cowling, because depending how it turns out, I might fiddle with it and make it a little bit more, a little smoother, because the model's going together so well I don't want to mess it up. But anyway, there's the fuselage basically done. Next will be machine guns.